Hey guys, welcome back to this session. And in this session, we'll talk about how to define a data name in COBOL. So let's get started. In COBOL, variables are called as data names. They're also referred as data item or elementary items, and I'll be using these terms interchangeably throughout the course. So by definition, a data name or identifier is the name used to identify the area of memory reserved for a variable. A variable is a name location in a memory in which a program can put data and from which it can retrieve data as per the requirement. Every variable that is used in the COBOL program must be defined in the data division. And the thumb rule to create a data name is that you can use numbers, letters, and hyphen with a maximum of 30 characters in each name. Now to define a variable, you need three important things. First one is a level number, that is to specify the hierarchy of individual item in a group variable or in the entire set of variables. After that, you need the variable name itself. Thereafter, you need a picture clause to define the type of data that you will be storing in that particular variable. After that, you need a value clause. This is used to specify the initial value or to assign the initial value to that particular variable. And we're going to deep dive into all these three important components in our next slide. Now let's talk about level numbers in COBOL. So by definition, the level numbers specify the hierarchy of data within a record, and it also identify special purpose data entries. A level number begins a data description entry and has a value taken from the set of integers between 1 and 49 or from one of the special level numbers, that is 66, 77 or 88. The following are the significance of the various level numbers that can be used to define a data item. So the first one is level 01 and it is used to define record description. Level number 2 to 49 are used to define fields within the record. Level number 77 is explicitly used for independent items. Apart from that, you can also use level 1 for independent items. Level 66 is used for rename clause and level 88 is used for conditional names. Now let's look at a couple of examples so that you can understand how exactly you can use level numbers to define your records or individual items within the program. So we have a working storage section and there are two group variables which is defined at level 1, that is with level number 01. The first one is ws-temporary-variables, and within that particular record description we have individual elements which is defined at level 5. So we have used level number 05 to define those variables. So first one is record length variable, which is defined with a picture clause, that is pic of 99, that is a numeric. Similarly, you have ws-emp-rec-in, and thereafter you have ws-error-message. And the second temporary variable, that's a group variable that is used to define conditional names, that is ws-end of file is a group variable, and at level 88 we have defined two variables. First one is end of file, it is basically a switch, and second one is not end of file, and they have a default value of n, y and n, right? So by default the value is n, and based on my logic I'll keep on tweaking the value of these level 88 variables. Now let's talk about our next example. So in this case again we have a working storage section, and thereafter we have ws-emp-rec. So this is again a record description, and within that we have like couple of elementary items or variables. So first one is employee number, then we have employee name, and within employee name again we have few individual elements. So again ws-emp-name is a group variable. Within ws-emp-rec is the actual group element, right? Similarly, in this case, we have used ws-emp-first name, which is x of 12, and we have assigned a default value as space. So If you'll notice the last variable that is at level 77, which is used for defining an individual or independent items. So that is total hyphen rejected record count. And remember, level 77 is only used for independent item. You cannot use level 77 for group variables, right? So finally, before we move to our next section, so here's a quick tip. So first and foremost thing is level number 1 and 77 must always begin in area A. Level number 2 through 49 can begin in area A or B. Level number 66 and 88 can also begin in area A or B depending on how exactly you're defining these variables in your COBOL program. Now let's talk about picture clause in COBOL. The picture clause is used to specify the data type and the amount of storage required for a variable or a data item. It is denoted by picture, which is often abbreviated as pic. A picture clause is specified only for elementary data elements or items and consists of picture characters. Each picture character denotes storage to be reserved for a character of that particular type. The following are the general picture character and their meaning. So first data item is alphabetic and the character that is used for defining alphabetic is A, and it can only store alphabetic, that is from A to Z. After that you have alphanumeric and the character that is used to denote that is X, and it can store anything that is from A to Z or from 0 to 9 or any special character. After that you have numeric, and numeric is denoted by 9 and it is only used to store digits that is from 0 to 9. After that you have S, which is used to specify or denote sign. Thereafter you have V, which is used to specify or assume your decimal. It is used to specify your implicit decimal, and you're going to learn that like when we look at couple of examples. After that you have numeric edited, and for that you have 9, which is again used for digits. Thereafter we have Z, and this is used in case if you want to suppress 0 on your reports, or maybe if you're printing checks for any customer. Thereafter you have comma, and it is used to insert comma within your amount or maybe within the string. Thereafter you have decimal point, and in case if you want to insert decimal point within some numbers, then you can use this. Apart from that you have minus sign, and it is used to display minus sign in front of the numerical data. Now let's talk about a couple of examples so that you can understand how exactly we can use picture clause followed by the specific characters. So in the following example, which is somewhat similar to what we have seen in our previous slide, so in this case we have a working storage section, and in that we have two variables. First one is a group variable and second one is an elementary variable, right? And if you notice that for a group variable, that is ws-temporary-variable, we did not specify any data type or any picture clause. So as I already mentioned, that picture clause is only used for elementary item. So in this case we have ws-rec-length, that means record length, and for that we have used picture clause, which is abbreviated as pic, followed by characters, and characters actually specify the data type. So in this case I want to store numerical data, so that means the length of the record, so I've used 9. And in this case I've specified 2 times 9, so that means the total length of this particular variable is 2. Similarly, if you notice the next variable, that is ws-emp-rec-in, in this case I've used 9, and in simple bracket I've used 06. So that means the size of this particular field is 6. So it can store any number between 0 to 6 times 9 in that particular variable. Now next is ws-error-message, and I've used x of 12, so that means it's alphanumeric and the length is 12. Similarly, if you look at next variable, that is ws-total-credit amount, and in this case I've used s, which is used to denote the sign, whether it's a positive, that means it's a credit. If it is negative, that means it's a debit. After that, I've used 9 followed by 8. So that means before decimal, you have 8 position, and V is used for implicit decimal. And after that, again, I've used 9. So that means after decimal, I have 2 places, right? Now the next variable that is employed department is defined as alphabetic, and the length of this field is 30 bytes. And the last one is employee salary, and I've actually used edited numeric and edited alphanumeric characters to define the data type of this particular field. And edited numeric and edited alphanumerics are generally used to display your data in a more meaningful format. That means your data is more presentable or readable. So let's say if this variable has 13,000 euros as balance, and if you want to display that on a report, so it will be printed as 13 comma, after that you'll have 3 zeros, after that you have a decimal point, and thereafter you have 00. Now let's talk about our next example, and again on the similar terms that we have discussed so far, we have defined 3 different variables. So first one is a group variable that includes couple of elementary items, and if you notice the second variable, that is employee first name, which is defined as x of 12. So for this particular variable, to assign an initial value, what we have done is we have used a value clause followed by a figurative constant, that is spaces. Now let's talk about our last two variables, that is total rejected record count and total record count. And these are two temporary variables which will be acting as a counter to just showcase the total number of records that have been processed by the program. So the first one is total rejected record count, and it is defined at level 77. So that means it's an individual item, and the length of this particular variable is 9 of 5. And similarly, the last variable, that is total rejected count, again the length is 5, but in this case again we have used a value clause to assign an initial value of zeros. Now before we move to our next section, let me just highlight two important things. First one is regarding alphanumeric item. So all unused position to the right are set to spaces, and for numeric item, the unused spaces to the left are set to zeros. So these are the two important points that you should always keep in your mind when you're working with alphanumeric or numeric data items. Now let's talk about value clause in COBOL. So value clause is an optional clause, and it is used to assign initial value to the data item or variable. The initial value can be numeric literal, non-numeric literal, or a figurative constant. This initial value can be changed in the procedure division based on your requirement. So that means whatever value you have initially assigned to a temporary variable that is defined in working storage section, that can be changed when you're using that variable in your program logic, that is in procedure division. So the initial value of data item or a variable can be changed or modified under the following scenario. So first one is you are doing some calculation with the help of that temporary variable, or probably you're moving some value from other variable to that particular variable. These are the two possible scenarios where you change the initial value that you've assigned with the help of value clause. Now let's talk about a couple of examples so that you can understand how exactly you can use value clause when you're defining the variables. So again, we have a working storage section, and there are two different variables that we have defined here. The first one is a group variable, that is ws-temp-variables, and that include couple of elementary items. So the first one is ws-emp-rec-in, and this is 9 of 6, and we have assigned an initial value of 0 to it. After that, we have ws-error message, and it is x of 12, and we have assigned an initial value as spaces. And similarly, we have next variable, that is ws-total credit amount, and we have assigned a plus 0 as initial value, right? So this is how you can use value clause to assign initial value to the variables that you define. In our next example, we have group variable, that is ws-emp-rec, and there are elementary items which is defined under that particular group item. So if you notice, first name, last name, we have defined as x of 12 and x of 14, and we have assigned an initial value as space and spaces. After that, we have employed department variable, which is defined as alphabetic, and the length is 3. And we have assigned an initial value as med. So that means it's a medical department. So whenever you run your program, so this particular variable will going to have initial value as med, and you can very well change that as per your requirement in your COBOL program. Before I wrap up this session, I'm going to highlight a couple of important points. So first one is that in case if you're assigning any value and that is smaller than what you have defined. So in that case, if you have an alphanumeric field, then it would be filled with spaces on the right. And if you have a numeric field, then it will be filled with zeros on the left. And in case if you assign a value which is larger than what you have defined, then in that scenario, we will going to get an error message. That would be a compiler error message, or the truncation will going to happen. And the last one is related to numeric edited, and in general you do not define these variables with value clause, because these items typically receives a value as a result of a move statement. So far, if you have any question, then do let me know. Otherwise, let's move on to our next lecture.